recognized symbol of excellence for your entertainment.
Not quite right, no. That's better, yeah.
Welcome to Machino Music, the show that puts the music in Machino music, with your host, me, Brett Strong. Today on Machino Music, we'll be talking about the legendary Ronnie James Dio. Stand up and shout. Good afternoon, everybody. Ronnie James Dio. That's what we're talking about today, the legendary Ronnie James Dio. Guy was amazing. One of the all-time great singers, one of the all-time great frontmen, not just of heavy metal, but you could say of all time. Like, just across all genres. I mean, guy had an absolutely amazing voice. So I'm just going to show some albums here, talk about a few things. Of course, this book, great biography. He actually wrote himself, sort of just over the years. Like, he always knew he wanted to put out his book. And went up to a certain point, so it's not like it was unfinished. But yeah, it finally got released in 2021. What it says on it. Yeah, 2021. His wife, Wendy, made sure that this was released. And pretty well it's all in his own words. And he's got an amazing story. Of course, the three bands that he was in, we'll talk about that. We got to start with Rainbow. Of course, the Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow album. Pretty great debut. I mean, Man on the Silver Mountain. What a song. I mean, that's kind of like a Dio anthem right there. That's kind of like his theme song. I mean, you think of that, it's like you just think of Dio. Some of the great tunes on here, mostly a lot of kind of deep cuts. I mean, that was kind of the biggest one. I mean, Snake Charmer's really cool. Dig it. Catch the Rainbow. Yeah. Really cool debut. Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. Then, of course, you got Rising, which really, this is the classic. And if only for the one song, Stargazer. I mean, it's a short album, only 6 songs on it because there are a few songs that are pretty long. Tear It Woman is like 6 minutes. Light in the Black is 8:11, but then Stargazer, the big epic Stargazer, is 8:27. And it doesn't get any better than Stargazer. That's one of those songs you hear and you never forget. And it's kind of swords and sorcery, and Dio was kind of sort of a pioneer of sort of the swords and sorcery style of metal. And I'm going to say I'm not really a big fan of swords and sorcery metal. I think it's kind of ridiculous, kind of silly. But Dio made it work. He really made it work. He's one of the only ones I think that really made it work well. And I mean, and this album is just a classic. When you're talking about classic heavy metal albums, especially early heavy metal albums, I mean, this is just, it doesn't get any better than this. And this album cover is so iconic. The big hand coming out, grabbing the rainbow. So cool. Love it. And this might be my favorite Rainbow album. Long Live Rock and Roll. I mean, it's got so many great tunes on it. I mean, the title track is awesome. Lady of the Lake. LA Connection, I dig. Gates of Babylon is so awesome. That was a big spit I just did right there. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those songs. Again, it's like Rainbow are those bands, and a lot of it had to do with when Ronnie was in the band, where it just, everything came together so powerful. And Gates of Babylon, like a song like Stargazer, you just never forget it. It is just one of those, just like, wow, nobody was doing this stuff. Kill the King is great. sensitive to light, which actually I can identify with as a red-haired, fair-skinned person. I'm sensitive to light. I mean, even these studio lights that I have on me, I mean, I could burst into flames. So I can relate to that song. Yeah. Also, it ends with a Rainbow Eyes, which is a beautiful, beautiful ballad. I mean, hearing Dio with his voice, I mean, the guy could do anything, and he's just so good. I've heard a lot of people kind of dump on that song, like it kind of stops the album. It's the very end, but still, I mean, it starts with such a big opener. You kind of, I think some people kind of want it to start with like a big closer as well. But I like Rainbow Eyes. I mean, maybe not really kind of sucky, what everyone, but it's just so beautiful. The melody of it, his voice, so good. Always like this album cover too. Picking my nose. Excuse me. What did Dio do after Rainbow? Well, Ozzy Osbourne was out of Black Sabbath, about to start on his solo career. Black Sabbath still wanted to go. Who'd they get? They got Ronnie James Dio. He joined Black Sabbath, and sometimes I would say this is my favorite Black Sabbath album. This one is so good. I mean, Neon Nights. The title track is awesome. I mean, it's just one of the greatest. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite Black Sabbath songs. One of my all-time favorite heavy metal songs, period. So good. Die Young. I mean, love Ozzy Osbourne. I'm a big Ozzy Osbourne fan. But, I mean, it's it's really kind of unfair to compare the two. But, I mean, Dio just brought something so different, so cool to Black Sabbath that it almost kind of fit better, like especially on this album and also the follow-up Mob Rules, which overall might be a better album. I mean, it's hard. I mean, both of these are so great. I mean, Dio would then leave and then come back later for a few, pretty good albums in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I was never a huge fan of a lot of those sort of later Dio Black Sabbath albums. But, I mean, these first two, can't go wrong. Turn Up the Night, Sign of the Southern Cross, Country Girl, Falling Off the Edge of the World. Yeah, so awesome. Yeah. And he just always looked cool on stage. There he is, and very, very small, very red because he got the light on him. But I mean, those Black Sabbath albums really can't be beat. But then after that, he had to go solo. He had to do his own thing. He wanted to write these songs. Maybe it wasn't fitting with Black Sabbath quite so well anymore. So what did he do? He put out his solo album, his solo band album, Dio Holy Diver. When I first heard this album, I mean, I'd heard Rainbow in the Dark, because that was on the then World Wrestling Federation put out the Stone Cold Metal, Stone Cold Steve Austin choosing his favorite heavy metal songs, and Rainbow in the Dark was one of those songs. So I'd heard that, I really dug that. So that kind of got me into it. But then I found out, and I actually dug out the magazine. This was that magazine that I was talking about in my heavy metal shows. It's talking mainly about, like Motley Crue and the glam metal and stuff. But it had a section on what they called real metal. And Holy Diver was one of those albums. I didn't find it because I circled it. Yeah, right here. It's not circled, but I mean, I have like Scorpions and Judas Priest circled. But yeah, Dio Holy Diver was in this magazine. I cut a lot of stuff out of this magazine. I used to get like pictures and stuff. And I got made fun of for cutting stuff out of a magazine by alleged friends. I'm just going to run a little tangent here, a little rant. I knew horrible people, I've realized. A bunch of two-faced jerks making fun of me and laughing at me for cutting stuff out of a magazine. Who the hell are you? Gee. A little rant. But anyway, I dug out that magazine to show you. But back to Holy Diver. I mean, just loved Rainbow in the Dark. And then I heard this whole album, and I was able to get it. stand up and shout. As soon as that hits, you're like, whoa, what is this? One of the greatest openings of any album. It's just such a great song. I mean, it's just so... And then, of course, the title track, Holy Diver, it's got that video where he's walking around with a broadsword. So cool. Great video. And really, not a bad song on this album. And then he had the follow-up, the second Dio album. I mean, these are my two favorites, Holy Diver and The Last in Line. I mean, this is such a great album. I mean, there's a few others later on. Like, I really like Lock Up the Wolves. Hey Angel, which I think is one of my favorite Dio songs, is on that record. Dig it. Can't go wrong with these first two. I Speed at Night, so great. One Night in the City, which is kind of like a Swords and Sorcery kind of song, but he makes it kind of very modern and cool and stuff. And so good. Love the intro on that. You got Vivian Campbell, pre-Def Leppard Vivian Campbell. That's got Carmine Appice. Actually, it was Vinny, his brother. Carmine was, I think, still playing like with Rod Stewart and people like that. Both great drummers. So yeah, there was Vinny on this. But yeah, so good. Just love these Dio albums, and just a huge fan of Ronnie James Dio. How can you not be a fan of Ronnie James Dio? This guy, I mean, you read this book especially, and you realize how much this guy like changed music in a lot of ways, and he's very underrated. And actually, another thing that he was a part of, which I don't think a lot of people realize even existed, because it's pretty obscure, he had a video game based off of Holy Diver, called Holy Diver, why not? And it was only released in Japan, but I was able to find this game and play it, and it's pretty cool. It's very difficult, but it's such a cool game. Ronnie James Dio had a video game. Here's just like a little bit of footage of it. See, he's like walking around. He's got a wand. He uses magic powers. The part where he turned into a dragon. That's a level in the game. You play as Ronnie as a dragon. So cool. And most people didn't realize this game existed. I mean, how many rock stars got a video game? You know, and he was one of them. He's in that exclusive club of rock stars, pop stars who are so big they actually end up getting their own video game. So yeah, Ronnie James Dio changed music in a lot of ways. He is just an all-time legend. And, you know, whether it's the Rainbow albums, the Black Sabbath albums, his solo band albums, gotta love the guy. Just an amazing person. And you can read his book. And that documentary, Dreamers Never Die, I could just go on forever about Dio. You see that and you just realize how great a person he was. A really good guy, really good to people. Really just inspirational. Yeah. A hero, a personal hero of mine. And I'm sure maybe a personal hero of a lot of you watching this. So if you're a fan of Ronnie James Dio, I hope you enjoyed this. That's it for this week. Until we meet again, this is Brett Strong saying good journey.